Is this the start of a major reversal in the market, or is this the dip that you want to be buying? Those are the questions I'm going to be answering today on the week ahead video. So thank you for joining in. My name is Blake Morrow with Forex Analytics, and we're going to talk about, this reversal that we're seeing at the end of the week this week in the S&P and in a lot of markets, to be frank. I mean, you see the yen is actually showing a big reversal today. As we got into a Friday in Asia, we've seen a big reversal going into the US session. The dollar strength, big breakout in a lot of currency pairs, and some breakouts look like they are brewing following Powell's comments yesterday when he said, this week when he said basically they're not all in as far as cutting rates again. And it actually turned the tide in the markets this week. So a lot of important things are moving the markets. So we're going to go through all the key events heading into this next week. I'm going to talk about all the analysis on different currencies, different market instruments that are moving. We're going to be covering the bond market. We're going to be covering yields, Bitcoin, S&P, copper, all the different currencies, and like I said, the calendar of events. So if you're watching this video on YouTube, especially a couple hours after it's been released, make sure you check out the chaptering feature down at the bottom, so you can kind of skip and fast forward to some of the events that you wanted to get to. But I also need to mention that Nick from Trading Analytix will be joining us today, giving us his views on a couple individual equities. I think he's going to be looking at Tesla and some of the major markets as well. So make sure you stick around for that. So without further ado, let's get started and let's talk about what's happening this next week as far as the equity market, as far as the calendar goes. And I'm going to do it like I did last week. I'm going to go through some of the key events, and you can follow along on Forex Analytics right here in your calendar. I'm going to be just referencing some of the charts as we go through, but we're going to really dig deep into the technicals in just a little bit. So let's start with this next week. We have G20 meetings. Now the G20 meetings I think are going to be actually fairly important this week because you got to start looking at the headlines. Remember, now you've got the G20. They're meeting and they're going to be discussing what? They're going to have to. They have a Donald Trump that they're going to have to be dealing with for the next several years. So of course they're going to be meeting and talking about the incoming president of the United States. So that's going to be, you might see some headlines come out this week, first few days of this week as a result. A couple other things. There are other things that are happening. We have on Monday night, we have the RBA rate meeting minutes. Now we've seen this big reversal in the Aussie yen. I mean this is big time. You can see the Aussie yen just pulling away. But I'm going to go over the Aussie dollar because I do think it's important this week. Tuesday, we have Canadian CPI. And by the way, if you guys haven't seen the dollar CAD, I mean, the dollar CAD is just in breakout territory above 140. I'll just pull up real quick just so you guys can see a 1 month chart and how big this breakout is in the dollar CAD. I mean, it's huge, right? I mean, absolutely enormous. You're going to have every technical analyst looking at the Canadian currency this weekend, unless something changes between now and the time that this video goes out. We are at the end of the day on Friday, so obviously there's headlines that could come out. Matter of fact, some of the headlines that the market's probably a little nervous about, especially those of you that might be short the dollar. They're nervous about who's the Treasury Secretary going to be in the new Trump administration. Is Lighthizer going to be the trade czar? Those are the types of things that they come out over the weekend. You could see some significant gapping in these dollar pairs, so just keep that in mind. But Tuesday, Canadian CPI. Wednesday, we have South African CPI. UK CPI, so obviously the sterling's going to be in focus here, especially after this week. Look at how bad the sterling has gotten hit this week, and we're closing on the lows this week. It's ugly. I'll go look at the charts. I'll dig deep into the technicals here in a minute. We have ECB financial review on Wednesday. Now, one of the bigger reversals, just like I mentioned in the very beginning, one of the big reversals that we saw in Asia and then in the North American session, European session, we kind of sat sideways, and then North America session, you can see how the dollar yen just continued to move lower. The yen strengthened. UEDA, BOJ's UEDA is speaking at the Paris Europlace Tokyo International Financial Forum but he'll be in Tokyo. But it's the Paris Euro place. I have no idea what it is, but he's on the schedule. The time is TBD. Thursday we have RBA's Bullock will be speaking, which we're gonna, like I said, we're going to talk about the Aussie. We have Norwegian GDP, Mexican retail sales, unemployment claims. And then Friday we have Mexican inflation. So the dollar mex, and I'll talk a little bit about the dollar mex too, because the dollar mex is still stalling, ahead of really its most recent highs. One thing that I'll mention it right now. One thing about Mexico is that that Trump and Sheinbaum have met already. And apparently the meeting went a little bit better than expected. And here's the other thing about Mexico. You got to think about tariffs, and the negotiations that may take place between the U.S. and Mexico might not be the same as other countries, as Mexico is U.S.'s neighbor and one of our biggest trading partners, if not our biggest trading partner, one of our biggest trading partners. Anyway, we also have an immigration issue with Mexico, so there could be less having to do with the Mexican, or less that could affect the Mexico economy, especially if President Trump wants to negotiate something more significant with immigration. So maybe that's one of the reasons why the Mexican peso hasn't weakened as much as I thought it would. So that's a thought process, something to be thinking about over the course of the next few months. But we have Mexico inflation, GDP. We have UK retail sales on Friday morning. We have the Eurozone, UK, and US PMIs. So we're going to see if there still is US exceptionalism going on. That is something that is obviously played its part in the dollar against other currencies. And then we have Canadian retail sales. Now, before we get into all of this and all these charts, because I want to go through all the different charts, I do want to talk about the trader funding program. Now, the reason why I'm going to mention this is because volatility is obviously on the rise. Matter of fact, you want to see how volatility is on the rise. Let me just show you. If you look at the VIX is about ready to start filling the gap. That's where you see volatility is on the rise, and it's elevated. Now, one of the best ways to take advantage of volatility is to be in the trader funding program. But I'm going to tell you a story here in a second, so make sure you stick around for this. The trader funding program is a way that you at home can access larger amounts of capital. You have to take an assessment. It costs you to take an assessment. That's your out of pocket costs. Now, if you pass an assessment, which is basically making 10% without losing more than 6% on a trailing basis, trailed to your high watermark. So if you go from 100,000 to 105,000, that means you can't lose more than 6% of 105,000. Hope that makes sense. Then you have to make 110,000 if you're doing a $100,000 trading account. Very simple rules. No multiple steps. You don't have to. You don't have any time constraints. We make it really, really simple for you to take. All right. So if you can make 10% without losing 6% on a trailing basis, this might be for you. Now, I know he's watching right now. He's watching this video. So Brian, if you're watching this, congratulations. And matter of fact, I'm meeting with him in approximately about, as soon as I'm done with this video, I'll be meeting with him one-on-one. If you're new to the trader funding program, you get to meet with me one-on-one. I get to show you that, hey, you got tools like Forex analytics, because we want you inside of our community. So you have traders like myself to talk to. You can go through, here's the trades room, for example. Here's the trades room. And you can, come and say, hey, when I say I added 1/8 of my dollar Canadian, my average long is 1.3991. As Sorab asks, hey, Blaker, when you add to a position such as the dollar CAD, do you have a limit, say, X% of account that you don't exceed? And then here's my answer. All right. So if you want to be able to, and then you can see where traders are getting in and out of positions, where I'm long, my positions, what positions I have on. If you want to know all that information, you get it inside of the trader funding program. Now, I want to tell you this story, Brian. Congratulations, he just passed a very large, one of our largest accounts, $1 million account. Now, I met with him a couple of different times through this process because it's important that he has somebody to talk to regarding this. So we talked about strategies, and then he reached out maybe about 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago. And he's like, hey, Blake, I was wondering, I was going to take you up on that offer to talk to you again, because I said, hey, let's meet back up in a couple of weeks. He reached out, and I was like, oh boy, he's probably in trouble. I'm just trying to dig himself out of a hole. Let's talk to him about that. He wouldn't have contacted me either way. He contacted me. We talked. He was within $10,000 of reaching his goal. And I'm like, why are you even calling me? And we talked out a few things, and he has passed his exam or his assessment, and now he's trading live. And we're going to be meeting now to formulate a new plan for him moving forward. This is the kind of care that you'll get in the trader funding program. Now, obviously, I extend that out to traders that take a little bit larger accounts. But even if you're a new account and you take a $25,000 trader funding program account, I still will meet with you one-on-one initially, show you what's available, give you some tricks on how I've passed and how I've traded over the years, which I think might make a difference for you moving forward. So check out the trader funding program. It's not for everybody, but it is sure good for a lot of people that want access to that type of capital. So now I want to cover all of these different instruments, and I want to cover these different markets. I want to start off with some currencies. So let's just go there. Let me pull myself off of the video here. And let's start with the euro. So last week we talked about the euro and the massive breakdown if we broke through 106.83. And we're like, well, if we can get back above 108, we're going to see a reversal. But remember last week, David in our chat room last week, and I told you guys about it, and I said, hey, there is a bearish outside week, bearish engulfing week in the euro. That usually means we go lower. Well, we broke down in a very big way. Now, if you look at the euro though, oops, I didn't want to do that. If you look at the euro now, we are at major support. The problem with this is if the euro continues to break down, it could get downright ugly. We could start seeing the 102 level on any break of 105, going into next week. Now, what's happening next week that could possibly do that? Remember, at the end of next week, we have PMIs, not only in the US, but also in the Eurozone. And if the Eurozone is still looking really sluggish, but the US is looking good, that could be one catalyst that continues to drive us lower, because everybody's looking at the ECB wondering how they can't be dovish. You have ECB members that are talking about bringing rates below what they consider nominal this week. You add that on top of Fed Chair Powell, who's talking about not cutting rates any longer. Well, no wonder the euro's driving lower. And then you talk about Trump policies and the new administration and how they could drive growth and there's a lot of reasons why the euro could continue to move lower. But the key technical level at this stage is at 104.50, and that's going to be the low from way back here. Back in October 23. If we drop through that, there's a lot of error. So just keep that in mind. Are we oversold? Yeah, we're near oversold, slightly divergent too. So, but oversold can be more oversold. Always remember that. All right, sterling. A key development with sterling is, we talked about this last week, of this trend line. We're almost there. The problem is if sterling breaks through this trend line, we could see some bigger moves. Now, remember, UK, we not only have inflation data out of the UK, but we have retail sales. We have retail sales. We have UK CPI. We have UK PMIs. Lots of data that could be the driver that pushes us below this trend line or keeps us above it. We have the Aussie. The Aussie, we hit the bottom of that megaphone pattern, and you can see it right here. Let's go over to the daily chart. Let's go over to a 4-hour chart, talk about it. We hit the bottom of this megaphone pattern, and we stabilized for a couple of days, and then we continued to drift lower. So I think it's safe to say we can get this out of the way right now. And what we have to be laser focused on at this point is what happens if we break this previous trend line. You can see it right here. All right. Now, one of the other things that we need to be thinking about is who is going to be the trade czar, because if it is Lighthizer, he's going to crack down on China like it's nobody's business. He's probably going to be moving swiftly, fast, and just that I said the same thing, two different words. He's going to be moving quickly and trying to implement tariffs and something to hold China's feet to the fire. And then, you know, with Chinese growth the way it is, you know, how's it going to affect China? How's it going to affect Australia, the Aussie dollar, which is a very big Chinese proxy? Matter of fact, one of the currencies that I should probably pull up here, let's do it right now. If you guys haven't seen this, the US dollar CNH, and let's delete this. If you guys haven't seen this, we talked about it on our daily shows. Remember, we broadcast every day, Face show, Flow show, talk a lot about this. Big inverted head and shoulder pattern. That's basically going to take us up to resistance. I mean, on the US dollar CNH, you got to watch this, because if China really needs to, you know, let out the release valve in their economy, they're going to let their currency weaken. That's going to help their exports. It's going to usher in people to buy Chinese goods despite the higher tariffs. It's going to help them combat that a little bit. So just, you know, be watching the US dollar CNH, especially going into this next week. You know, we're obviously, the dollar is strengthening and the CNH is weakening, and China could, again, let this release valve out a little bit and let it weaken some more. I do want to talk about the US dollar, the Kiwi dollar. And Kiwi, we were talking about last week about being in this megaphone pattern. Well, it did find a little bit of support down there, but then we continue to break down. Now, the problem that you have with the Kiwi is we are at major, and I cannot emphasize how major this support is. And because you guys can see it, if we break through that, where's the next stop for the Kiwi dollar? I mean, we're looking at levels that we have not seen since October of last year, or a couple years ago. So you can see how big this support level is. We start breaking through, you know, next thing you know, we're opened up to 57 cents. Something that has to be on your radar if you're trading Kiwi, any which way or form. You know, New Zealand yen, Aussie Kiwi, doesn't really matter. Dollar CAD. Now, this is a very important chart, and I'm going to actually pull up the chart that I've done videos with this week. I use a different data feed, so for this, I just want to show you guys how important this one is. This is a weekly chart. This is going back. Now, remember, out of Canada, we have a lot of stuff coming out in this week. We have CPI on Tuesday. On Friday, we have retail sales. Look at this massive breakout. Now, the upper end resistance is in the higher 147s, 147, or excuse me, higher 140s, near 147. And then beyond that, you start looking at levels that we haven't seen since 2002, 2003, since the dot-com bubble bursting, you know, and that big slowdown that we saw here in North America, or in the US, excuse me. So we're not in uncharted territory, but if the dollar Canadian is going to close above 140, more than likely, unless there's some headline that comes out in the next couple hours before the market closes, you know, we're gonna break out above 140, and I have to accentuate the fact that retail traders almost across the globe, because I've seen a lot of positioning from retail. Retail's you, retail's me. We're retail traders. There are some brokers that are showing 75, 80%, and some as much as 90% or more of their traders are short dollar Canadian as it's breaking 140. Until that stops, the beatings will continue. The market is going to force all the retail traders to cover their shorts, whether it's at 141, 144, 147, 150. It's going to force every short out of the market who's a retail trader, and then reverse. that's kind of just how the markets work. So, can this breakout continue is the question you should be asking. The answer to that question is there's a really high probability of it at this point. And it has been insatiable, the bids. Remember, Canadian data coming out, over the next couple of days. A few other currencies I want to show you. I talked about the Mexican peso. I don't need to go back into that. I talked about it as I was talking about the calendar of events this week. I do want to talk about the dollar yen. The dollar yen has been unstoppable as well. But just over the last couple of days, we've seen a bit of a reversal. Now, as I probably mentioned a couple of weeks back, this is the bearish breakdown point of the dollar yen. We start getting below the 200 DMA, but I'm going to give you guys something more to look at. We are at channel support right now in the dollar yen. So if we start moving lower in the dollar yen below the 150, let's just call it 153.80 level, and then below the 200 DMA, you're probably going to see continued yen strength. So keep your eye on the dollar yen. The yen is doing its own thing, and it's not just the yen, it's other yen pairs as well. And as far as currencies go, I am just stick around because one of these yen pairs is going to be making it to my top 3 trades of this next week. So make sure you stick around for that. Any other cross rates I wanted to share with you? No, not currently right now. Oh, you know what we should do? We should look at the dollar index really fast. You can see the dollar index is extending its gains. Now we are at a 50% retracement. It's just the inverse of the euro, but we're at the 50% retracement of this entire move, right? We're basically there. We start breaking above 107.70. You got to start thinking that there is going to be a squeeze, towards 110, maybe even higher. And the one thing that I've learned about currencies and about the markets just in general is wherever you think a currency or a market can go, it can go further than that. And I'm proved that time and time and time again. So if we do end up getting a breakout above, let's say 107.50 in the dollar index, which is right around here, we start breaking above that. I'm not sure where it could go, but it could continue to extend. So you have to think about what does that do to your euro currency, sterling, Aussie, Kiwi, whatever you're trading. Okay. All right. Now, let me continue on. I want to talk about a few other markets now that I've gotten through these currencies. Let's talk about gold. Gold, if you're not a Forex Analytics subscriber, we've had a couple patterns in play in gold. You can see there's one right here with the key support break. Okay, there's one that's currently in play, and then there's a closed one recently in the in gold. You can see it right here. Right there, we closed it from the highs, but reshorted it again. Those are reserved for our, subscribers in Forex Analytics. But I want to go over gold because I do think it is nearing really critical support, which I believe is channel support. So let me redraw a few things. First of all, I'll get rid of the flag that you see here. Flag. Right? I want to show you a few things that have caught my attention. First of all, let's take that high to that high, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this. And now you can see how we're on support. Pretty important at this stage because you'll also notice that if you take this low here to that high right there, you'll see we're at a 50% retracement of this entire move. So if we start breaking 25.40, we could literally be trading about just below 2,500. And then there's a lot of horizontal support and a 618 retracement. And below there, things really start to open up. I've been worried about gold for several weeks. I know we've talked, or actually several months, maybe a couple months. We've talked about it here over the last couple of months about this massive move in gold. And you don't get a 30% move in gold every year. That's a joke. I mean, but that's what we got this year, right? I mean, you think about the move that we got from if you've been in the markets for almost 3 decades like myself, seeing a 30% move in gold over the course of a year is just, here we go. Yeah, 38% move in gold. And you had retailers like Costco in my neighborhood. They sell bars right over there. You could literally walk in and just buy a bar of gold. Retail is all in. Mom and pop is all in gold. And look, I don't think gold's a bad asset class. Actually, I think it's a great asset class over time. But it seems like to me that 2400 is pretty realistic because that's the 200 DMA right there if this channel breaks. Can we go lower than that? Sure we can. Are we going to go lower than that? I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. I also want to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has hit the 161% extension of its cup and handle. Now, you guys know my measured move for the cup and handle takes us to 103. That is basically the depth of the cup measured from the bottom of the handle. It takes us to 103. 103,000, that is. All we're doing right now in Bitcoin is consolidating gains. You have a lot of Wall Street palling around with the crypto bros, and now in the administration, seems like it's only a matter of time that we get to 100,000. So if you're lucky enough to find a dip below 80,000, if you're lucky enough to find one of these, I think you have to use it as an opportunity. Will we get it? I don't know. It's questionable at this point. I also want to talk about copper, because copper, last week I said it's coming into big support, or Trump consolidation, excuse me, but now it's coming into big support. It's triangle support. Nick, who I'm going to bring in just a minute, he does talk about copper, or talked about it all week this week, how he was buying some off the support, and it's holding for now. But if we start breaking below this week's lows, the next stop is going to be about 385, 387. So keep your eye on copper. A couple other things I want to mention before I bring in Nick. We were talking about crude being in a really tight trading range last week. And it is, but guess what? We're at really critical support. This is that range support we talked about. Because frankly, if we start breaking below these lows, there's a lot of open air below that. It becomes like an elevator shaft that is in free fall. That's where crude is at to me. A lot of people have been buying crude over the last year because of all these conflicts that we have. Well, if those conflicts miraculously come to an end as Trump comes into office, crude might come under pressure. Plus all the extra supply that's being put on the market too. Last but not least, before I bring in Nick, I want to talk about yields. This is a big one, guys. We talked about the bear flag in the ZNs, but now we are trying to break support. We were breaking a little bit earlier. This trend line support, it's very, very key. You can see it right there. Very, very key. If that breaks, that means yields are probably rallying. If yields are rallying and you're short the dollar, you better think again. That's all I have to say about that. All right, this is the moment that I want to bring in Nick from Trading Analytix. So let's go ahead and bring in Nick. He's going to cover some markets for you.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Nick Groves. Blake, thanks so much for plugging us in. As you can see today, we have a sea of red, so there's a lot to talk about, and I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Now, it's looking like we're breaking the 50% retracement at the moment. That comes in at 58.89 S&P futures. If you're looking at the cash, that's right around here at 58.70. So let's say we move a little bit further. I'm looking at this 618 here at 58.30. That also coincides with some trendline support. And if we get below there, closer to 5800. If we get down there, there's also a gap that we created back, I think, on November 6th. So will we come down and fill it? That also coincides right here. You can see 57.90 on SPX. I think that's probably the next line of support. What is concerning me, though, is you have a little bit of a throw over here. The NASDAQ cash has an island reversal false breakout. So those false breakouts typically lead to breakdowns. So you're seeing it in the S&P, you're seeing it at the NASDAQ, and you're also seeing it in the Dow with this throwover. So will we continue lower is the big question. We've seen rates in the dollar signaling this for quite some time. So are we going to see some further weakness? I think it's definitely possible. Where would I try to get short the market? I'd probably be looking for a move back up closer to 59.50 or so in the S&P if I wanted to get short. But I think there's also a risk that we simply bounce from here, given that we're in such a strong bull trend, right? In the event we keep moving higher, you're seeing things like Bitcoin, AMC, Dogecoin break out. Those are all those euphoric trades that we saw back in 2021. So will that occur? I'm not sure, but it definitely can happen. Let's talk if we break this support. I think the big supports comes in at 5,700. This support in October and right near the election acted as very strong support. So if that breaks, that's when we can start talking about key risk off levels, right? But for now, still in a bull trend. I'm not overly bearish at the moment. I just got out of my S&P short this morning. Still holding NASDAQ short, but we're going to have to see how things transpire. Taking a look at big tech. One thing I do want to point out for you guys, NVIDIA is breaking channel support. We've been in this in this channel since September, breaking it a little bit right now. In the event we continue lower, I'm looking at this 131 level. You can see I have a buy zone listed. This acted as previous support in October. There's also a spike in middle of October, and we have the 38.2% retracement coming in right around here. Why do I think NVIDIA could get down there? Well, when you take a look at SMH, you can see it broke some trendline support. This is the semiconductor ETF, and it's also sitting in a head and shoulders pattern. So further weakness could happen. Another stock I want to point out is Amazon. It's down the most out of the Mag 7 today. We spoke in lengths leading up to the election that if this stock broke out, it was likely to hit 214. And then I put the sell zone up there. If you took advantage of that short, nice work. I do think we're at support right now, closer to 200. And if we get below there, I'm looking at 191. If you're looking for more updates on the Mag 7 stocks, please check out Trading Analytix. I also just put out a video and pinned it. I walk through more of the Mag 7 for you all, give you charts, and I will be updating us over the weekend on Saturday evening. So if you're looking for more content, please give us a follow and check us out. And with that, I'll pass on back to Blake. Thanks so much and have a great weekend.
All right, Nick, thanks for covering all those different markets, and I love some of the individual equity market picks that you brought in. So thank you for that. I'll see you in the chat room on Monday. All right, and by the way, everybody jump down below in the comments and wish Nick a happy birthday. It's his birthday this Sunday. So please, down in the comments below, wish Nick a happy birthday and thank him for providing that snippet each and every week. All right, dollar yen, by the way, is just crossing some levels. All right, so now this is the point in the video that I want to cover the 3 trade setups from last week, and then I'm going to give you 3 trade setups for this week. So the first setup from last week was the Aussie yen, and my notes say sell short rallies to 101. Well, let's see how high we went this week. On Sunday, we rallied to 101.36. So I said sell rallies all the way up to 101. I'd say that worked. Congratulations. Okay, trade number 2. Sell Aussie New Zealand at 110.50 to 110.70. Aussie New Zealand. Monday, right? Let's see. I'm on a 4-hour chart. Yes. So Friday, Sunday. All right. What is the high here? The high here was 110.49 and 4/10 of a pip. So I missed the number by 0.6 of a pip. That was close enough. You have to admit that was close enough. All right. That one's gone down since we hit that level. But did we do that on Friday? On Sunday. We actually went to 110.52. You could have traded that twice. So 2 trade setups, both of them worked. Third one, buy the EURUSD while below 149.25. I thought this support was going to hold. I owned the EURUSD. I got out of it, but guess what? I bought it down here because if you were in the Forex Analytics chat room, you saw this chart. I almost picked off the lows, is because I started buying it when the dollar Canadian actually broke out. So that's a Gartley pattern. And so, or cipher, anyway, it's a harmonic 161% extension. And then I started buying it down there. So third trade setup didn't work. Third trade setup did not work. Unless you were in the Forex Analytics chat room, then you might have had 3 for 3. All right, so those are the 3 trade setups from last week. What are the 3 trade setups for this week? First one, dollar Canadian. It's a massive breakout. I already explained it to you. Massive breakout above 140. Now, you just hope you can get a dip to 140 to be on the long side. So, trade setup number 1, buy dollar CAD on any dip to 140. It's going to be your best risk reward. Trade setup number 2, short euro yen at 163.20, if you can see it. That is going to be this previous support. Now I'm going to show you, whoops, let me draw that for you. That's going to be that previous support right there, 163.20. A couple things that have happened in the euro yen. If you look at the 200 DMA, or I'm sorry, the daily chart, you'll notice that we cannot get it back above the 200 DMA. So now that we're breaking lower and making lower lows, now we just want to sell rallies. So selling any rally to 163.20 next week, that's trade setup number 2. Trade setup number 3. Now, before I give you trade setup number 3, I want to say this. If you find these videos beneficial to you and you think they're instrumental into setting up your trades for the following week, make sure you give me a thumbs up. If you're watching this on X or Twitter, give me a like, give me a retweet. Tell the team down below in the comments how much you appreciate them getting you out an edited copy over the weekend and putting it out on venues where you can watch this. Thank the team for me because they're working over the weekend to make sure this happens for you. So thank you very much for doing that. And subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitter, wherever you see us. But make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel. It's free to do that. It's free to give a like. But if you follow the YouTube channel, this way you'll be the first one to be notified when this video comes out each and every week. All right, last but not least, third trade setup. Sell S&P rallies above 5,900. Now, I think the S&P is, and this is where the analysis is going to come in. I think the S&P is currently trying to carve out a high around this channel. Now that we're below 5,900, I think if you can sell rallies above it, I don't think we're going very far. I think that we're going to get a hell of a pivot off of channel support or some support down here when the Trump administration comes in. But that's literally over a month, over like a month and a half, almost 2 months away. So there's a lot of time that the market has to absorb all this information and what it means for us to have a second Trump administration, second Trump presidency, excuse me. So I think we can have some back and forth before that happens. So anyway, I think we could maybe hit the 50 DMA, maybe get close to 5,700 in the weeks ahead. So that's where I'm going to go with. So guys and gals, if you have found this video beneficial, make sure you give me a thumbs up. And I want to thank you for spending your most valuable asset, which is your time. Thank you for spending it with me. I do appreciate it. And once again, happy birthday, Nick Groves. Happy birthday to you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great remainder of your weekend. I'll see you on the F.A.C.E show. Remember, you can capture our live shows. They're free, 2 a day. The Flow show with Ryan Littlestone and K-Man, he comes back this week. And then also the F.A.C.E show, we're going to get myself and the rest of the team, the rest of the crew there. All right, I'll see you on the F.A.C.E show Monday. Have a great remainder of your weekend. Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with Forex Analytics. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.